Okay, so let's get started. Hello, I'm Neil McDonnell. If you don't know who I am already, I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to welcome you to my daily LinkedIn Live event, show, whatever you want to call it, where I discuss process and procedures for you to achieve success in the federal government space. I've spent 20 years as a small business owner, running companies and running sales in the federal market. And since 2018, I've been teaching folks like you that government contracting is not a secret, it's just a process. And today I'm excited to talk about part of the process, thinking from A to Z, what's the process in between as it relates to getting on a contracting vehicle that already exists. I'm pretty excited to talk about this topic because it came up yesterday. A student of mine, Jim, had asked me this question. He says, I always know what to do, what I want to get, that end goal, right? But what are some of the steps? And so in certain areas, I'm less familiar about the steps. And we happen to be talking about contract vehicles. I was like, oh, great question. Thanks. That's tomorrow's topic. And so I'm pulling that thread today on how do you get on an existing contract vehicle? And one of the things I want to point out, just pulling up a slide that's going to kind of guide me through what I want to say. But one of the things I want to point out is what I'll talk about today, even though it's specific to this process of getting on a contract vehicle, it's similar to what I do in all aspects of government contracting. I determine what I want to achieve, right? That endpoint. And then I lay out a process. What are the steps to get there? So that's what we're going to talk about. I want to remind you as we go forward into getting on a contract vehicle. There's this great line that say people only buy from those they know, like, and trust. And so in this case, people only let other people on a contract vehicle who they know, like, and trust, right? Everything is about know, like, and trust. And actually, to me, like is the least part, right? They need to know who you are so they can then develop trust. And through those two, the relationship will evolve where you begin to like each other. I find that sometimes people try to be liked first. Forget about that. Build the trust, and the like will come later. So let's get started on that. I've got 8 bullets I want to talk about. This is a roadmap that I'm going to go through on how to get on an existing contract vehicle. If you'd like a copy of this roadmap in the way that I lay it out, it's a simple single sheet roadmap that I follow as a guide. Throw a comment in the comment section, whether you're watching replay or you're watching it live, and I'll send it to you when I get a chance. But just put something polite in like, hey, could you please send me that roadmap on getting on existing contract vehicles? Let's start with first step. First step on this long journey of getting on a contract vehicle is you have to determine what contract vehicle you want to get on. So there's hundreds of thousands of contract vehicles out there, and you've got to choose the ones that are most helpful to your company. So in this process that I'm talking about today, I'm not talking about random contract vehicles. I'm talking about Oasis, right? Or Seaport Next Gen. You have determined that contract vehicle is the best fit for you on what you want to achieve. Now you want to get on that contract vehicle because it's too late to be a prime. How can I get on it as a team? So I alluded to this already. Part of determining the contract vehicle is make sure the contract vehicle aligns to what you what you sell. So your products or services, are those bought through the contract vehicle that you're looking at? The other one is, does your primary agency use it? You should be looking at really one primary agency. Maybe you're looking at 2. But even when you get up to the largest, the salespeople, the capture people, business developers, they tend to focus on the Air Force, the Department of Education. Sometimes they might focus on a core competency like, hey, I'm going to work on SharePoint across multiple agencies. And that's a different way of doing business. But that's something that happens as you mature as an organization. But early on, you want to find that primary agency, because in this scenario, you want to make sure that they're using the contract vehicle that you're envisioning getting on. And the last thing is, and I kind of said this already in different ways, but why is this contract vehicle going to be helpful to your goals? So if I want to get on, I want to sell cybersecurity. There's a new Air Force contract vehicle coming out. It's $6 billion, and it is all cybersecurity, right? So $6 billion is probably going to be 10 years. Well, I want to get on that because most of the cybersecurity work will probably come through that, and I want to get on that. If it was already awarded, this is a new one, but if it was awarded, I would determine that's a really good fit for me. Okay, so step 1, determine the contract vehicle. Step 2, is determine who the contract holders are on this contract vehicle. So you want to do your research. There's a contract vehicle out there called HCATS, I think, HCATS, and it's a excuse me, human resources training type contract vehicle on the professional services side. And I might look in there and go, okay, let me find out who won this contract vehicle. Who are the awardees or the contract holders? By putting that list together, this is the next step for me in researching bullet 3 on the roadmap, which is determine the spending pattern of all these companies that are on there. Who's getting contracts, who's winning on there, and who's just sitting on there and idle. In DLA, there's something called JETS contract vehicle. It looks awesome. A lot of people have it, but when you look, a very small amount of the companies actually have access to it. And so you need to look at that and determine when you're reaching out to people, you'll know whether they're having success, and you can talk to them about, how to be part of that success. Or maybe you look at the ones who aren't having success and you can talk about how you can help drive opportunities to that vehicle. Whatever it is, you want to be determining who's on that contract vehicle, who are the holders, so that you can then see the spending patterns on who's winning. Another part of spending patterns for a contract vehicle is who's buying. So you got the who's winning and now who's buying. I already talked about the Air Force, making sure the Air Force is, if that's your primary target, make sure you're picking contract vehicles are in there. But on this contract vehicle, now you can go into FPDS or other tools and see for sure which contracting offices, which funding offices are using a particular contract vehicle. And by doing that, you can see if those align to what you sell. And so this is just bullet 2 and 3 are about researching into the contract vehicles to make sure they're right before you begin to reach out to folks. So the last one in the part that goes with research, I break it into 2 phases: researching the vehicles and that activity there, and then planning on reaching out. Number 4 here is to create a ranking criteria of the contract holders and then to rank these awardees. And so let me explain a little bit about what I mean ranking criteria. So if you look at a contract vehicle like 8A Stars 3, 8A Stars 3 is an IT contract vehicle. It's tens of billions of dollars on contract ceiling, and it's got 1,000+ contract holders. It seems like a lot, but if you have a ranking criteria, you can then begin to look in to the that contract vehicle set of holders and rank them on the levels you want. So going with Stars 3, 8A Stars 3 contract vehicle, it's broken up into three main groups, I think. One is pretty much everybody who can do any general IT work. And then they have a separate pool, if you will, for companies that can do OCONUS outside of the United States, continental in the United States area. They can do overseas work, basically. And then the third category, which is the one that I like, I'm like, oh, emerging technologies. This is where I would find artificial intelligence and machine learning, things like that, that might tie to what I do. Well, as I'm ranking it and determining a criteria for how to rank, I might say that I'm looking for companies in there that really are similar to me. So doing emerging technologies, or I might say, I don't want any of the companies that are in that emerging technology pool, because maybe I'd want to connect with people who aren't getting traction in there. Whatever your criteria on that is. The other thing is I might say I'm looking for companies that are based out of Texas. I talked earlier about EC2 and the cyber contract vehicle in the Air Force. Well, that's basically going to be run out of 16th Air Force, which is down in Joint Base San Antonio. I'm going to put that on my criteria. I'm going to give you a higher ranking if you're down in Texas, nearer the customers I want to knock on their doors. And so as you go through, you can determine the criteria that'll help you. I might look for companies that are on a couple of contract vehicles. I might look for, as it relates to 8A companies, I might look for 8A companies that are still have 6+ years ahead of them. And so as you create a set of ranking criteria, you can then rank all those awardees and pick that top 10, that top 30, and to begin to reach out to people to get on a contract vehicle. So let me just restate these 4 steps as I summarize it back for research, right? First step is determine the contract vehicle you want. Second one is to sit there and determine who the contract holders are, or who are the prime contractors. on this contract vehicle. The third one is to determine the spending pattern on the contract vehicle of both the buyers and the sellers. And then the fourth research step is to create a ranking criteria and rank the awardees so that you're reaching out to the people that are most likely to be a good fit first. All right, so those are the first four major steps. There's actually a lot of little steps. I just grouped them into four for here. The next part gets into preparing to reach out to these people. And so when I'm getting ready to reach out and talk to people about an existing contract vehicle, I created an intro call plan template. And so when I say intro, I always mean I'm doing my first cold call. It's going to be an introduction call. And so I want to create an intro call plan. Call plan is I put those in place, right? I want to create an intro call plan template. And this template will be generic to all of those contract vehicle holders that I'll be pursuing, that I just ranked. And so I'll have a generic one, and I'll talk about what's on it in a second. Later, I will then customize that call plan for each one with some unique stuff, and I'll talk about that in a second. Absolutely, I see the people asking for the call plan or the roadmap. I will definitely track on the comments later and get it to you for sure. So if you want a copy of the roadmap, just let me know in the comments, or in the replay, let me know in the chat as well. Okay, so when you're creating an intro call plan template, one of the things you want to focus on is what's in it for me from their perspective. If I'm calling John at Booz Allen, who's on a contract vehicle, I want to be thinking to myself, why would John want to add me to his team? What's in it for him, for me to be added? He's already got a team. He's got subcontracting companies in place. What do I bring? You absolutely must bring value. And I'll give you a couple of examples of value that you could bring. One is agency knowledge. So a great example is if you're working down at Joint Base San Antonio and you've done some work down there and you know program office people, et cetera, you've got relationships. Well, getting on somebody's or reaching out to John at Booz Allen, he might not have as good of relationships down there. And that's something I could say, John, I could bring that to the table. Another example of value you might bring is specific skill sets or experience. So I talked about agency knowledge and intimacy. You could have experience, meaning past performance, that could be helpful, or you could have skill sets. We're really strong in cross-domain solutioning or whatever, and that's helpful to companies that are in the cyberspace or information assurance or whatever, who have to go from the high side to the low side. If you've got that skill set, they might go, oh, that's great. We've been a little weak on that area or something. But whatever it is, you have to decide this for yourself. And when I go through the process, I look in there and say, well, what am I bringing? And I don't need it to be really unique for every person I'm calling, every company I'm calling in this scenario. When I'm calling about a contract vehicle, what I'm trying to do is to bring as much as I can, a single message to each one of these folks, because I'm really trying to talk about their contract vehicle, not about an individual opportunity, not about long range other activities, but this contract vehicle, we could fit really well on your team for this reason. Okay, so creating the call plan template. Another thing I do is, here's an example of a purpose. So the purpose is the agreed reason for discussion. And I'll just give you this quick one here, is that I like to say we're going after an ops that tend to be on your contract vehicle. And I just wanted to see if there's room on your team for us. And so somewhere along the lines, that's what I'm trying to talk to you about, John, right, at Booz Allen. I just want to see if there's room. We're going after Air Force opportunities down at Joint Base San Antonio. I know a lot of them are coming out on that particular contract vehicle. Any room for us? And again, if you've heard me before, sorry to say again, but if you haven't heard me say this before, I like to say some will, some won't. So what? Some of the people will go, no, that sounds great. Yeah, let's see if there is a fit. Other people go, no, team's formed, it's locked. If they say the team's formed, it's locked, or any variation of that, that's okay. That's a no. In sales, you get no's and yeses. And this is very much a sales call, because you're trying to get on a contracting vehicle, which allows you to participate on opportunities that are unique to that contract vehicle. So be okay with no's. I don't need you to be happy with them, because they bum me out sometimes too, but be okay with it, because you need to get no's and yeses to be operating in balance. All right, the other thing is a couple of questions. When I'm filling out my call plan template, I have a questionnaire at the bottom of the template. And I like to ask just probing questions to some degree. And I wrote down two here to use as example. One is, I noticed you're on Oasis. How's that working for you? Some variation of that question. I'm going to go, how's it working for you? Do you see a lot of opportunities coming out? An example is when I was reaching out to companies on DLA, I was pretty surprised by two things. One is they were saying, oh, yeah, no, the only things that come out on small are lowest price technically acceptable, or LPTA, or just really kind of undesirable low-level type work. It's hard to say that's undesirable because it's money, but I was able to learn that by asking them, how's this contract vehicle working for you? I thought it was awesome. It's DLA. They spent billions. It's the primary IT contract vehicle. And then the other thing I learned from them by asking that is that I learned that the more higher value projects basically go full and open. And I was like, all right, I was planning on just talking to smalls in DLA to get on the DLA Jets contract vehicle. Now I'm learning I'm going to go knock on the largest doors as well. So, and through my research, I was able to see that, let's say it's Accenture is making the most over there. They're getting the most task orders, not necessarily the most money, but the most task orders. And that actually is more important to me because that means consistent sales. And the other question I put down is when opportunities come out on this contract vehicle, how does the government notify you? Is there a portal? Like in Seaport Next Gen, that contract vehicle, there's a whole portal for it. And so the notifications are done there. My second question to John at Booz Allen is, hey, if we were on your team, what's the process for you letting us know and us telling you whether we can participate on a task order? I really like that type of question because it's getting him to think about how he would work with us. And he's one step closer to putting us on the contract vehicle. And I'll say this interesting thing because I know sales, the word and the act, sometimes it's hard for people who aren't fully in it. But in real estate, there's this way of talking to home buyers. When they come into a home, the real estate agent is trying to get them to move in mentally. Oh, could you see the couch sitting here and facing that window and seeing the outside? And I'd be like, no, I'd rather the couch be here so it faces the wall with the TV. Man, I can just look outside when I want. They're like, huh, good. Well, now I'm beginning to visualize myself in that house and I'm potentially closer to buying it. This is not a bad thing. This is just helping people make the decisions. And it's the same thing with John. How would you notify me of opportunities? If he's starting to tell me that, then he's open to putting us on the vehicle and I need to convince him that we're a good company. And that's what I want to teach you. Okay, so the next one is, so that was step 5. All that was step 5. A lot of steps that I just combined into step 5 here. The next one is you want to schedule intro calls. So you're going to reach out, pick up the phone and call people. In my opinion, never start with email, but pick up the phone and call people. Often you get a voicemail, so make sure you have a template script that you can just read off and say, hey, let's just call in to introduce our companies and then also talk to you about Oasis contract vehicle. You just leave it at that. You don't even say you want to get on it. You're just calling. And the idea is to schedule an introduction call. If you're lucky, you schedule it a week out. That's how I like to recommend you do this because then you can research John at Booz Allen, for my example, more thoroughly, which leads me into step 7 here, which is create individual call plans. You're going to take that call plan that we created as a template. It's going to have the generic stuff on there that I want. My objective, get on the contract vehicle, right? That's really what I'm trying to achieve from this call. My purpose is to find out if there's room for us in there, if there might be a good fit for us to team on opportunities in the future. That's the purpose or agenda, but there's this objective I'm trying to achieve. And then my generic questions that I've prepared for this set of outreach. So individual call plans, I add an icebreaker. If you've heard me talk about doing call plans, you want an icebreaker that doesn't have you talking about golf or the weather, but it goes straight to the meat of it. If somebody was going to call me, a great icebreaker would be, hey, Neil, I watched that video you did on getting on contract vehicles. It was a great video. And I'm like, oh, great, thanks. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed sharing that information. Well, we're talking about that, and you can naturally then move on to having conversations with, hey, you're talking about John. I'd like to meet him. Could you introduce me? By the way, I don't know who John is. But an icebreaker is designed to make you talk more about the business and not about golf or the weather. You could mention awards that they might have. I noticed you guys won an award and Air Force is really impressive. And so it seemed like we might have a fit on future opportunities. Another good thing for on individual call plans is thinking about why this company is a good fit for you. You and they might be a good fit, independent of the contract vehicle. I know I'm calling to try to get on John's contract vehicle, Oasis, let's say. But why else would Booz Allen value teaming up with me? Why would I value teaming up with Booz Allen beyond the fact that they have the contract vehicle? Well, they do a lot of Air Force work, or they've got a big presence down in San Antonio. Whatever it is, you generally want to see more attraction than just you got the contract vehicle, I want to be on there, because that doesn't build a strong relationship. And that's what you're trying to do, really, right? Through this outreach effort is to start and build a relationship with John so that you can get on the contract vehicle and then begin to work on future task orders. And then the last step in the roadmap, really kind of the last bullet there, is to have the introduction call. You're going to meet with John. You're going to follow your call plan. And in the call plan, you're going to sit there and be working with John to first be communicating the what's in it for me. Remember, I talked about that. And then beginning to ask questions about the contract vehicle you have interest on. Is there room? How do task orders come out? And then, the last question, and I didn't put this in the template call plan, but you certainly want it in there, is what would it take for you to add me to your team? And let me clarify how I look at a contract vehicle team after it's been awarded. I describe subcontractors as named subcontractors and unnamed subcontractors. So named subcontractors are in the proposal that got sent in, and those companies won that contract vehicle with one company sitting at the top as a prime, right? Afterwards, though, it's just a contract vehicle. So I said STARS 3 is $50 billion. EC2 is a $6 billion cyber vehicle. So if a company wins EC2 and they've got 10 partners are in there, well, they can decide to bring more people in. Those other companies might add value. Maybe some of the people who won just aren't participating much on there. So there's room to be in there. You just would not be a named subcontractor. You would be unnamed. And it doesn't matter, because the way that contracting works on a contract vehicle is a task order would come out. The prime owns the responsibility, and there's multiple primes, but they own the responsibility to write a proposal back. Well, from our perspective, that's just a new opportunity. It happens to be on a contract vehicle, but it's a new opportunity. And the prime will look to the named teaming partners first, and then may or may not be open to unnamed teaming partners. And that's where I'm trying to talk to you about today. How do you get on an existing contract vehicle generally as an unnamed teaming partner? So that's it for the roadmap. I want to look here to see if I have any questions. If you would like a copy of the roadmap, I'll send it to you. And that'd probably be tomorrow or later, because I got another webinar this afternoon. But if you'd like a copy of the roadmap, happy to send it to you. Just put in the comments, please send me a copy of the contract vehicle roadmap so I remember later. And you can also do this if you're on the replay. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and just send me a direct message as well. But putting it in the comments makes it easy for me to go, oh, this is what I was saying, and this is what you're going to get. Anybody have any questions? I'm just looking there because this was a pretty complex topic done pretty fast. Roadmap, I'm seeing all these ones about the roadmap for sure. And I'm not seeing questions. I just want to check. While I'm waiting for last second to see if there's questions, I want to tell you I have a webinar today at 2 p.m. Speaking of how to get on contract vehicles, right? It begins with relationships and reaching out to people. Today, I got a webinar on how to start and build relationships that lead to federal revenue. Love to have you join me. It's 2 o'clock East Coast time. And when I say today, by the way, in case you're watching a replay the next day, it is May 3rd. So, okay, absolutely. We'll send the roadmap. I think we're good to go. I wanted to thank you for joining me today. If you found value in it, give it a thumbs up or let other people know so that they can find us as well. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me offline. Gus put a link in on how you can sign up. And I just want to remind you, government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. I'll see you next time.